Hey y'all, and welcome to the cutest little thing. My name is Andrea, and I'm so glad you are here today. I love all things thrifted, vintage, upcycled, and DIY'd, and here on my YouTube channel, you will find all of those things. I'm from southeastern North Carolina, and I have 2 vendor booths in my local small town where I sell my crafts and DIY home decor. And here I will share all of the video tutorials of those pieces. I'm super excited for today's project, so let's get started. We have another cute project today using muslin fabric. I traced the shape of a triangle and cut that out. I needed 2 pieces because you need a front and a back to do this, and these are going to be no-sew, so we are using hot glue. And you want to apply your glue in sections because hot glue does dry quickly. Glue a little section and then pinch together, and that will spread that glue between the fabric, being sure you have a good seam. And if you haven't guessed already, we are making cute little candy corns for the fall decorating season. And I like to start at the bottom, at the big part, because it's just easier stuffing your way back up to the top at the little point. I do like to add dried beans to mine as well. It just gives it a little bit of weight and a little bit of texture, but this is optional. And if you have something else on hand that you would rather use for the weight of it, you could absolutely use anything you already have on hand. And then I just take polyfill and begin stuffing my little candy corn. And just take your polyfill and kind of fluff it. I'll just tear it apart and that fluffs it up. And just stuff it in your triangle shape. And then you'll just glue a little bit more, another little piece, all the way up until you leave just a small opening at the very top. And then you can stuff the rest of your polyfill in that little opening. And if you close it all the way up and you decide you want to add a little more polyfill, or you put a little too much in there, you can always heat it up with your heat tool and heat that glue up and pull it back apart and add or take away as needed. Now we are ready to paint our candy corns. I'm using the color King's Gold and a little bit of milk chocolate, and both of those paints are apple barrel paints. I find my apple barrel paints at Walmart. I mix those in a bowl, and I do add a little bit of water as well, just so it will be not as thick to brush onto your candy corn. And I just freehand that first section down at the bottom, and I flip it over and paint the backs of the candy corns as well. Next, for our orange color, I'm using the color Pumpkin in the Waverly and a little bit of chestnut in the apple barrel. I get those mixed in my bowl, add a little bit of water, especially with chalk paint. If you're using chalk paint, you may want to add a little more water than if you're using acrylic paints. And again, I freehand that section right in the middle. And you can always adjust that after your paint dries if you need, to paint over part of the section, if you want your orange to take up a little more space, or your yellow. And I do add those brown tones in my colors just to deepen and darken them a little bit, because I'm going more for a primitive style with these. And last but not least, we need our white color. I'm using Ivory in the Waverly with a little bit of toasted marshmallow in the apple barrel. And I thought the muslin fabric color, it went really well, but I wanted it to have that painted look just like the orange and yellow section of the candy corn does. So I wanted it to all kind of match. But as you can see, that color mixed together is almost identical to the muslin fabric. After your paint is good and dry, we are going to grubby these up just a little bit. And again, this part of it is optional. If you like the brighter look of the candy corns, just skip this step. You can grubby yours up with coffee grunge, or you can use brown wax, and I'm going to show you both techniques just so you can see the difference. Here, I'm going in with bare wax and my blender brush. I had a friend to send me this, but I think you can find it at Home Depot if I'm not mistaken. But I start at the edges and I kind of go a little bit darker at the edges, and then I just take what's left on my brush and go over the entire middle section of the candy corn. And I do this on the front as well as the back. I also go a little darker between each color, like where the different colors meet. I will go a little darker there just to show a contrast. And now with the grunge, again, this is coffee grunge. If you are not familiar with coffee grunge, it's hot water, instant coffee, cinnamon, vanilla, and I like to add pumpkin pie spice to mine as well. And here is that recipe for you if you would like to take a screenshot. And just like with the wax, we are going to take a brush and brush our coffee grunge on. And I start around those edges and go darker. And I will even dab off some of what's on my brush onto a rag or a paper towel. Lightly go over the whole center of your candy corn, as well as going a little bit darker between the colors where those colors meet. And now it's time to embellish our candy corns. I grabbed some raffia and some different fabrics, and I'm just taking that raffia in my hands and creating some loops, and this is going to go at the base of our bow. And you can trim away the excess. And to hold that part together, I tie with a piece of jute string. And you can pull on your loops to kind of get them adjusted and make it look more like a little bow. I also had some different color raffia that I got from Hobby Lobby last year. And I was using some of the different colored raffia to do the same thing. And I would even mix it with some of the original raffia. And I like that look as well. There was also orange, but that orange was just a little too bright. So I did just dab some coffee grunge over it just to darken it where it would match more of the orange that we used on our candy corn. I also took some of my Jubilee fabric, homespun fabric strips and placed them into our coffee grunge. You can use that coffee grunge recipe to dye your fabric as well. And after you let it soak a little bit, you pull it right back out, squeeze it, and then you can dry it with your heat tool. After the fabric was good and dry, I took several different strips and made a simple shoestring bow. And I hot glued a little bow right at the edge at the top of each candy corn. And then I would take my jute string and make another shoestring bow and embellish the center of my homespun fabric bows. I just placed it right in the center, and I did decide to add some greenery. I had some Sweet Annie. I get my Sweet Annie from Etsy. I have to shop different shops trying to find it because it will run out of stock. So just search around on Etsy for dried Sweet Annie. And I took these little cute little buttons to embellish the center of the bow. And I love the greenery added. I think it just adds a pop of color. Look how cute that is. I also added tags to each one. I've stamped different sayings on them. Some of the candy corns said yum. You could stamp candy corn on them, candy or sweet. When I used up all my Sweet Annie, I grabbed my favorite greenery that I get from Hobby Lobby and used it as well. And here is where I used the little raffia bows that I made, and I would glue those down first for the base, and then I would put my Jubilee homespun fabric bows over that. Add that greenery and those tags, and these candy corns are the cutest little additions for your fall decor. And let's take a look at the finished product. I love these. The possibilities are endless. You could do them all different ways. Use different embellishments. You could go for the brighter if you didn't want to do the grunge or the primitive look. Just go for those brighter colors. You could sew them and have that cute little stitch showing all the way around. They are just too cute. I am so glad you're here today, and I hope you're enjoying today's video. If you are and you haven't already subscribed to my channel, I hope you'll do that before you go. Hit that notification bell. Choose all notifications so you don't miss a thing. All right, let's get back to the DIYs. For this project, we are going to be baking in the kitchen again, but that is faux baking. We do need applesauce, but that doesn't make it edible. And for this recipe, you'll need a half a cup of applesauce. I'm doubling the recipe here, and you can do that if you would like. But you'll need a half a cup of applesauce and then a 1/4 cup of school glue. Any school glue, it doesn't matter the brand. We'll need a half a cup of ground cinnamon and a 1/4 cup of pumpkin pie spice. And you can kind of tweak your spices here. You can Really use whatever spices you have on hand, whatever spices you would like. It's all going to smell amazing. Now in my dough, I like to use some flour and some salt, and that just helps make my clay more pliable and kind of hold its shape a little bit better. And I like to add a 1/4 cup of flour and 1/8 of a cup of salt. Now, if you don't want to do the flour, you can always just go in with more cinnamon. Mix your dough up really well. The more you mix, the thicker it's going to be, and the more of that dough-like consistency it's going to take on. Next, just take your spoon and scoop you out a section of your dough and roll it in your hands into a ball-like shape. And you don't want it too small, but you don't want it too large either. And it's also good to have a little bit of different sizes. And you can just kind of shape it with your finger. I did decide to go in and add a little more cinnamon to my dough, and you can tweak your dough as well as you would like. If it feels too wet, if it feels a little too sticky to the touch, you can always add you a little more cinnamon in. And if it ever feels too dry, you can just add you in some more applesauce or a little more school glue. Next, I'm taking a thin stick right out the yard to go in and make creases all around my ball shape. And if you haven't guessed, we are making little pumpkins out of this dough. And you can also use a toothpick for this, but I was out of toothpicks. So I just had some sticks in my craft room that I had been crafting with, and it worked perfectly to make my creases. And I used a little bit thicker sticks, and I broke them for the stems of the pumpkins. Now I wanted to make some tendrils for each pumpkin. This is some floral wire that I get off of Amazon, and it works perfect to make little pumpkin tendrils or curlicues. And I just wrap some wire around. You can use a dowel rod or a stick or anything, thin that you can wrap it around to make your wire curl, and then just trim it to the length that you want, and then that's going to stick right in your dough. You need to do this though while your dough is still wet and soft, and just stick them right in at the base of the stem. And you can kind of take your finger and pat around the pumpkin to help it keep its shape, and also to get rid of any fingerprints that you may get in your pumpkin while you're holding it and the dough is still soft. And you just continue this until you use all your dough in your bowl. And you can double the recipe or half it, just all depending on how many you want to make. And they make different amounts because it all depends on how big or how small you make your pumpkins. And they are so cute and they smell so good. Now we have all of our pumpkins made and they are ready to go in the oven. I just lined a baking pan I had with some tin foil, and they're going to go in at 175. And I like to set my timer for an hour. I'll check them after that first hour, bake a second hour, then I'll cut that oven off and just let them stay in there with the heat that's already in the oven. After they are good and dry and cool, you can bring them back out. And if they're not quite as dark as you like, I like to add coffee grunge to mine. Now, this recipe, I was kind of playing around with it still, and I had added more flour, so these pumpkins turned out a lighter color. So I definitely wanted them to be darker, so I'm going in with my coffee grunge here. But the less flour you add and the more cinnamon you kind of stick to the recipe I gave you in this video, you should be okay with the color, but you can always still add you that coffee grunge for more of that smell that it gives off. You just can't go wrong with coffee grunge for sure. Give them a nice coat of that, and then you can dry with your heat tool or just let them air out and dry room temperature. Next, I'm going to show you a super cute way you can stage these pumpkins. These are little baskets that I pick up from the Dollar Tree, and I do coffee grunge them as well. Line them with a piece of burlap, or this is a piece of a coffee bean sack that I had on hand. I like to add a little bit of greenery in there. And of course, our dough pumpkins that we made. And look how cute that is already, just staged in this basket with a little bit of burlap and greenery. I just love it, but I do like to add a bow on these baskets. This is some burlap ribbon that I get from Amazon, And I'm just simply tying a shoestring bow with it. And you can just kind of pull on it to get those loops the same size that you want. Trim your tails the length that you're happy with. And simply hot glue it right onto the side of your basket. I embellished that bow with a cute button. Here is a second basket. I did the exact same way, except I used some of the orange greenery that I had on hand, as well as some little mini pine cones and these are either lemon or orange slices that I got off of Amazon as well. And I absolutely love the way this looked too. I don't know which way I like it better. I just think a variety of all different ones displayed throughout your home would be perfect. And I'm just showing you here a basket that I haven't coffee grunged yet, just to kind of show you the process of that. The color of them are already pretty, but I just love the more primitive look, and of course giving you that wonderful cinnamon smell, especially for the fall season. Here is another way you can display them. These are the little crate boxes you can get at Dollar Tree as well. And yes, I am staining it with my coffee grunge. So you can use your coffee grunge as a stain as well. Just rub it all over your piece, and I did rub it in the inside as well. And just like with the baskets, I lined them with a piece of cloth. This is a piece of tobacco cloth that's coffee grunge that I had a friend of mine to send me, and it smells so good. I also stuck some raffia in the very bottom, mostly for a filler, but also just to see another texture in your crate. You could also add your raffia to your baskets. Here I'm cutting more of that orange greenery that I had. I'm pretty sure I got this from Amazon. I'll check to see if I can find a link for it. And I just laid some of that down on each side, as well as a little piece of greenery. Add your cute little pumpkins, and look how cute this is. I still added some of those mini pine cones. Those come from Amazon, and I also added some of those orange dried slices in there. I think those are so pretty for the fall season. Added that burlap bow on the front, and then to embellish this one, I tied a piece of jute string into a shoestring bow and hot glued that in the center of my burlap bow. And y'all, here they are all staged up. I think these are the cutest little things. I love them so much. The pumpkins, you can stage them in your home however you want. You can use the little baskets I showed you or the crates. Both of those are from Dollar Tree. Or if you have a dough bowl already, just fill them in your dough bowl with pine cones and greeneries and maybe some acorns. The possibilities are endless with these. If you have a 3-tiered tray, that would be absolutely gorgeous sitting in your tray. Here is another way I styled some. I had this bowl that I picked up at a thrift store. Added the burlap and the greenery and some cute acorns. The possibilities are endless with these. Y'all let me know what you think. Thank you all for being here today and watching this week's video. These projects are so fun to make, and I hope you love them as much as I do. Leave me a comment and let me know what you think of each one. Also, let me know if you will be trying them or if you have already tried them. Fabric is so fun to craft with. You will see me using muslin fabric especially to make so many different crafts. And I also love different types of cinnamon salt dough. The recipe we use today is very similar to our other cinnamon salt dough recipe that we've used in the past, but by adding the applesauce and the school glue and also more cinnamon, it's just giving our pieces a slightly different texture, a darker appearance, and a much stronger smell. Don't forget, you can find me on Facebook as well, where I craft live on Tuesdays and Wednesday mornings. And sometimes I add an extra day throughout the week if I'm in a crafting event. I'm also back on TikTok. I had taken a break, but I'm back up and running over there. So I hope that you will come and join me if you haven't already. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a blessed week ahead, and I look forward to seeing you for next week's video. Thanks again for watching. Bye for now, friends.